My stepdaughter showed up to dinner with her abusive boyfriend, and my wife reacted by slapping her across the face. My stepdaughter was 18 years old when she met her fourth boyfriend, Gustavo. She insisted that he was kind, funny, and ambitious. But she'd also said the same thing about 23-year-old Vaughn, whose biggest goal in life was to hold the world record for the most number of kills in League of Legends. Or 19-year-old Deco, whose idea of emotional regulation was sucking the life out of a unicorn-flavored jewel whilst texting his mom as many death threats as possible. But this time was different. As soon as they walked in the door, she squeezed my hand 3 times. Our old signal from when she was younger that meant, "Help me." But when I looked up at her face, she was smiling as bright as ever, and I couldn't tell if it was by accident or not. Dinner started normal enough. Gustavo had a firm handshake, brought flowers for my wife, complimented her cooking, but I kept watching Lucy, trying to figure out what she needed me to see. That's when I noticed her reach for the mashed potatoes and freeze. "You sure about eating all that, babe?" Gustavo said, his voice light, but his eyes weren't. Lucy's hand pulled back like she'd touched something hot. "I guess I'm not really hungry," she mumbled, even though mashed potatoes were her favorite. 20 minutes later, Lucy mentioned her friend Cynthia's birthday party next weekend. "We already discussed this," Gustavo said, cutting his steak. "Not we can't go or I have plans, just we discussed this, like that was the end of it." Lucy went quiet, staring at her barely touched plate. I wanted to say something, but the last time I'd confronted one of Lucy's boyfriends about controlling behavior, she defended him and cut me off for 8 months. 8 months of her mom sneaking me updates of missed holidays, of her blocking my number. Turns out he was worse than I could have ever imagined. But I never forgave myself for how I handled it. I was watching Gustavo's hand on Lucy's shoulder when her phone buzzed on the table. Before she could reach for it, Gustavo picked it up, read it, and deleted something. "Spam," he said, pocketing her phone. Lucy didn't even protest. My wife's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. The breaking point came when they started talking about some movie. "I actually love the ending," Lucy said. The way the ending was garbage. Gustavo's voice was flat. "I don't know. I thought it was kind of beautiful how silence." Gustavo just stared at her. Lucy's voice got smaller. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. Still no response from him. Just that cold stare. "You're right. It was stupid. I don't know why I said that. The ending was terrible." Gustavo nodded approvingly and said, "Glad we're on the same page." My hands were shaking under the table, watching my own stepdaughter apologize for having an opinion. When Lucy got up to use the bathroom, Gustavo actually said again. Like she needed permission. Then he followed her. Didn't even pretend to need the bathroom himself. Just followed her down the hallway like it was part of routine. My wife grabbed my hand under the table, squeezing hard enough to hurt. We could hear muffled voices. Lucy's getting higher, his staying level and firm. They came back 5 minutes later, Lucy's eyes red and puffy. But what made my blood run cold was what Gustavo was holding, her anxiety medication. He rattled the bottle absently like it was his. "Sorry about that," he said, sitting down. "She gets worked up over nothing sometimes." Even my wife, who always tried to see the best in people, spoke up. "Lucy, honey, are you okay?" "She's being dramatic." Gustavo answered for her. Always as Lucy wasn't looking at any of us anymore. Just staring at her hands folded in her lap like a kid in trouble. My Lucy who did theater, who argued with me about politics, who sang too loud in the car, now completely hollowed out. It took everything in me not to slam that young man's head right into the drywall. And I guess he noticed my anger because that's when he put his hand on her lower back, steering her towards the front door like she couldn't walk on her own. Lucy hugged my wife, then me. That's when she did it again. 3 squeezes hard, deliberate. Everything in me exploded. "She's not leaving." Gustavo laughed. Actually laughed. "Good one, Mr. and Davies. But she's mine. She belongs to no one," I said, stepping between them. "She's staying here." That's when he broke character completely. "I told you he'd crack," Gustavo shouted, but not at me. At Lucy. He was grinning now, this wild, triumphant grin. "You owe me $500. "Wait, what?" I stood there frozen. It worked. Lucy squealed. The whole dinner was fake. I hired him from my theater class to play an abusive boyfriend. Lucy's tears stopped instantly. I knew you still loved me. That's when my wife slapped Lucy across the face hard. Mom. Lucy gasped, holding her cheek. You know what happened last time? My wife said, her voice ice cold. Nobody moves. I'm standing between my wife and Lucy, and the sound of that slap is still ringing in my ears like someone fired a gun in the room. Lucy's hand comes up slow to touch her cheek, and her face does this thing where the shock melts away, and something harder takes its place. Something cold and calculating that I've never seen on her before. Gustavo takes a step back toward the door, and then another, and the grin is completely gone now, replaced by this wide-eyed look that tells me he wasn't expecting any of this to be real. My wife's hand is still raised in the air like she forgot it was there. And I can see it shaking. The whole situation just flipped from a stupid test into something way bigger. Something that's been hiding under the surface of our family for who knows how long. I finally find my voice, and it comes out rough. Gustavo, you need to leave. Right now. I reach into his pocket where he'd slipped Lucy's phone earlier. He doesn't even try to stop me, just stands there, looking scared. I hand the phone back to Lucy. She takes it without meeting my eyes, her hand trembling as badly as my wife's, her fingers brushing the red mark spreading across her cheek. My wife's still staring at her own raised hand like it doesn't belong to her, like she can't believe what she's just done. The dining room suddenly feels too small, too hot. I can hear Gustavo's breathing quicken. He bolts for the door. It slams shut, then the sound of his feet on the porch steps, the car door, the engine roaring too loud for our quiet neighborhood. Tires screech, and then he's gone. Now it's just the three of us. Lucy and my wife stare at each other across the dining table, frozen. The yellow roses Gustavo brought sit in the center, probably fake, now that I think about it. Just another prop in the performance. Beside them, the untouched mashed potatoes from the fake dinner. The whole thing feels staged, like I'm watching a play where everyone forgot their lines and no one knows what comes next. I grab my wife's arm and pull her into the hallway, not roughly, but not gently either. I just need to get her away from Lucy before something worse happens. My voice stays low, but my anger is clear. What the hell were you thinking? She jerks her arm free hard enough to throw me off balance. Lucy knows exactly what she did, she hisses, her voice cold, but trembling with something else, fear. This isn't about the slap. You don't understand. You weren't there last time. Last time, that phrase hits me. There's a whole story here, a piece of history I don't know, and it's shaping everything happening now. Lucy follows us into the hallway. I expect tears or fear, but she looks defiant. I needed to know, she says steadily, though her cheek is burning red. I needed to know if you still cared enough to protect me, after what happened before. Something inside me snaps. Not anger exactly, but close. Manipulating people into proving their love isn't love, Lucy. It's control. You need to learn the difference. She shakes her head like I'm the one who doesn't get it. You passed the test. You should be happy you proved you'd stand up for me. The argument goes nowhere. Lucy keeps insisting I should be grateful for passing her test, as if that somehow redeems everything. My wife just stands there, silent and shaking, avoiding both our eyes. I realize she's not going to help me. I walk to the hall closet, grab a pillow and a blanket. I can't sleep beside her tonight, not after seeing her hit our daughter, not with this unspoken last time hanging between us. The couch in the living room is old and lumpy. I lie there staring at the ceiling for hours. Sleep doesn't come. My mind replays the fake dinner over and over when I should have known what last time really means and how we got to this point where Lucy believes love must be tested instead of trusted. Morning comes. I'm still on the couch when my wife walks in, dressed for work. We don't speak. Then Lucy appears and my stomach turns. A dark bruise is forming on her cheek, purple and raw. Proof of last night. My wife tries to apologize, but it comes out stiff, defensive. Lucy, I'm sorry, but you pushed me too far with that stunt. Not a real apology. No ownership. Just blame. After she leaves, Lucy locks herself in her room. The click of the lock echoes through the house. I sit at the kitchen table, open my laptop, and start searching things I never thought I'd need to know: coercive control, relationship testing, trauma responses, fear of abandonment. The more I read, the clearer it becomes. Lucy's pattern of toxic boyfriends, the staged crisis, her endless need for proof. It's not just teenage drama. It's something deeper, something broken in how she understands love. I call a domestic violence hotline. I need someone who actually knows what this means, someone who isn't me, or my wife, or Lucy. A woman transfers me to someone named Marlene Horton, who's worked with families for 20 years. Her voice is calm, steady, not shocked. I tell her everything: the fake dinner, the slap, the 8 months Lucy shut me out. She just listens and asks gently, when did Lucy start testing relationships like this? Has she ever been in a truly abusive one before? Marlene asks what happened during the 8 months Lucy wasn't speaking to me, and I realize how much I don't know. She explains that Lucy's tests are trauma responses, ways of controlling love after growing up feeling unsafe or uncertain about it. Even the 3-squeeze signal might be part of that pattern, a silent way of asking for help. Marlene suggests setting boundaries and making safety plans instead of playing along. She gives me websites, therapists, and communication tips. For the first time since the dinner, I feel like maybe there's a way forward. The next morning, I catch Lucy in the kitchen. I tell her I love her, but I'm done with the tests. No more fake boyfriends or setups. She slams her mug down. If you really loved me, you wouldn't need rules. Real family shows up no matter what. I try explaining that boundaries aren't conditions, but she walks off, insisting real love has no limits. Later, my wife sits beside me and says Lucy's been through a lot. I ask what she means, and she goes silent. When I push about last time, she says some things are private between her and Lucy. The secrecy drives me crazy. I tell her we can't fix a family built on half-truths. She walks away. That evening, Lucy comes down with a backpack. She says she's staying at Cynthia's because we don't trust her. My wife says nothing. Panic hits, but I remember Marlene's advice and force myself not to beg her to stay. I just tell her I love her and to text if she needs anything. Hours later, I finally get one word from her: okay. It's not much, but it's something. When my wife comes out of the bedroom, we fight loud and raw. I demand to know what really happened before, why she hit Lucy, what she's hiding. She breaks down, saying she's terrified of losing Lucy again. Those 8 silent months nearly destroyed her, but she still won't tell me what caused them. We argue until we're both drained. She goes to bed, and I end up on the couch again. The next morning, Lucy's message wakes me, a long text saying she's scared of being abandoned. Every time someone says they care, she tests them to see if they'll actually stay when it matters. Lucy texts that the dinner with Gustavo was meant to prove I still cared enough to protect her after 8 months of silence. It's not an apology, but it's honest, and I take that as progress. I tell her I understand being scared, but that there are healthier ways to ask for reassurance. She doesn't reply, but I feel something shifted. Still uneasy, I decide to verify her story. I email her theater instructor, Sophia Horton, to confirm the project. At a nearby coffee shop, Sophia tells me Lucy did hire Gustavo, but she'd been worried Lucy wanted him to act intensely controlling, and it felt personal. She says Lucy's been choosing darker roles lately, always playing victims or people in crisis, as if working through real pain on stage. Driving home, I realize Lucy's been asking for help all along, just in code. The acting choices, the fake dinner, even the 3-squeeze signal. She's been trying to say she's not okay. I call Marlene and ask if she'll meet with Lucy and me together. She suggests something informal, a coffee shop instead of an office. I text Lucy the invite, no pressure, just a chance to talk. She replies 2 days later, okay. At the meeting, Marlene thanks us for coming and lays out ground rules. She asks Lucy what she really needs, not what she's been testing for. Lucy insists that real love means grand gestures and dramatic rescue. Marlene gently counters that real love also means respect, believing people when they say they care, without forcing them to prove it through chaos. Then she explains something that hits hard. When Lucy stages abuse, Her body doesn't know it's fake. The fear and stress are real, and she's re-traumatizing herself. The tests also trap everyone else in no-win situations where we're set up to fail. Marlene suggests creating a new system, simple, honest signals for real help. A code phrase, a text, something clear and direct. Lucy resists, saying direct communication feels too vulnerable. Marlene nods and says, that's exactly why it works. Real safety means asking clearly and trusting the response. By the end, we've outlined a few new rules and a shared understanding. It's not perfect, but it's a start. We agree on new family rules. No physical contact during arguments, time limits on tough conversations, and the right for anyone to call a pause if things get too heated. Lucy says it feels too formal, like a business contract. I tell her structure doesn't kill love, it protects it. Marlene adds that clear boundaries create safety for everyone. Lucy hesitates, but finally nods. It's not much, but it's something. That evening, I tell my wife about the coffee shop meeting and suggest bringing in a mediator for therapy. She immediately says no, she's not airing personal issues to a stranger. I argue that we need help. She snaps that she'll go only if it's for Lucy, not to unpack her own past. When I press, she insists some things are private. Her hands shake, but she finally agrees to family therapy reluctantly. The next morning, I search online and find Alexander Horton, a therapist who specializes in trauma and communication. I book the earliest slot, Wednesday at 4, before my wife can change her mind. Just scheduling it feels like progress. I text the details to both her and Lucy. No replies, but at least it's in motion. That night, I visit Lucy's room. She's on her phone, but lets me in. I apologize for how I handled her last boyfriend, coming in too harsh, trying to control instead of support. I admit I was scared of losing her and made things worse. I tell her I won't repeat that mistake, but I also won't stop setting boundaries. Love means honesty, not silence. She listens quietly, then asks what I would have done differently. I say I would have asked questions, offered help instead of ultimatums, and made it clear my support didn't depend on her leaving him. She nods slowly, thinking, then she starts talking about that ex, the real one. How he isolated her from friends, tracked her phone, and criticized everything she ate. How he pressured her to skip meals until she collapsed and ended up in the hospital. Suddenly, the dinner with Gustavo makes horrifying sense. The comment about her food wasn't random, it was a trigger from her real trauma. She'd recreated it to see if I'd protect her this time, to see if anyone would notice before it was too late, and I finally understand. The fake crisis was never really fake. It was her way of asking for help, just in the only language she knew. I hear the front door open and my wife calling that she's home. Lucy and I are still on her bed when my wife appears, asking what we're talking about. Lucy hesitates, then tells her about the hospital incident. My wife freezes, then quietly admits she paid all the medical bills without telling me. She says she was afraid I'd call the police and Lucy would side with her boyfriend and disappear again. She thought she was protecting us, but really she was protecting herself from losing Lucy. I'm furious. I ask how she could hide something that serious. She says I don't understand what it's like to watch your child self-destruct. I tell her hiding the truth only delays the damage. She argues it's different because Lucy is her biological child, that I can't understand that fear. I say being a stepfather doesn't mean I love her less. We're both yelling now and Lucy shuts her door. Then my wife's voice breaks. She says when she was a teenager, she was in an abusive relationship too. Her mother slapped her when she defended her boyfriend, and she'd sworn she'd never be like that. But seeing Lucy with controlling partners brought it all back, and when Lucy staged that dinner, she snapped. She became what she'd promised not to be. Suddenly, everything makes sense. Her secrecy, her fear, the slap. Both she and Lucy are reacting from old trauma. I stay up late thinking about it, realizing I can't fix their past, but maybe I can help stop the cycle. Maybe I can be the steady one who doesn't react from fear. 3 days later, we walk into Alexander's office for family therapy. The room feels heavy with silence. My wife and Lucy sit apart. I take the chair. Alexander starts by saying we have to address the physical violence first. Safety is non-negotiable. He asks my wife if she can promise never to hit Lucy again. She quietly says yes. Then he asks Lucy if she feels safe. She hesitates and says, I don't know. It hurts to hear, but it's honest, and it's a place to start. Alexander set ground rules. No yelling, anyone could call a timeout, and we'd focus on communication before diving deeper. He said therapy wasn't about blame, but about changing unhealthy patterns. He asked my wife if she wanted to say anything to Lucy. For the first time, she turned to her and gave a real apology, no excuses, no defensiveness. She admitted she was completely wrong for hitting her and promised to work on her reactions in therapy. Lucy listened quietly and just said, okay. When asked how she felt, Lucy said words were easy. She needed to see change over time. It stung, but she was right. Alexander then asked about the dinner stunt. Lucy said she knew it was wrong but didn't know how else to see if I still cared. When he asked what she meant, I explained the 8-month cutoff. Lucy said I made her choose between family and love. I said I was protecting her. She said I was controlling her. Alexander stopped us before it escalated and assigned homework. Write letters about our needs and boundaries without attacking each other. After the session, I met Marlene for coffee. She gave me practical advice, support Lucy without controlling her. She said Lucy should make her own choices with safety nets, like sharing her location voluntarily or naming me as her emergency contact. The goal was to give her tools, not take over. That evening, Lucy came into the kitchen with a note on her phone titled Red and Green Flags in Relationships. Red flags: control, isolation, invasion of privacy. Green flags: respect, support, and acceptance of no. She asked if I'd help her stay accountable to her standards. I said yes, that I'd be honest, but trust her choices. She smiled and asked if I thought she'd ever find someone who respected her boundaries. I told her she would, it just might take time. She nodded, and for the first time in a long while, we sat in silence that actually felt peaceful.